When my mom was pregnant with me, my biological dad went to jail, and he was in jail until I was 8 years old.
You end up pregnant in your early 20s, and you go back to see your bio mom.
Yep.
What was that like for you?
She really thought that giving me and my brothers away was the best thing that she could possibly do for us.
How do you explain this to your daughter, or have you? I mean, does she know your journey? Does she know the story?
I think it's really important for especially our kids to see us have emotion and to know our stories and know our struggles and know that life isn't going to be this like linear, just straight path.
Hi, this is Laura Neuman. Thanks for joining us today. I did this big event this week where I was speaking in front of an audience, and I was sharing some of the challenges that I've encountered in my life. And every time I do these events, there's always a line of people afterwards, and they want to tell me about the challenges they've encountered. And I just firmly believe that and I said this actually in my speech, I said, you will never convince me that it was a blessing that hard, difficult things happened to me, that I experienced trauma in my life. But I'm going to take every one of those experiences and I'm going to use it to become stronger and find a way to turn that into a positive and do good in the world. And for me, that has been my guiding light. I don't like this narrative that it's a blessing that hard things have happened, but I do believe those struggles can become our strengths. And for me, that's always been my guiding light. And I know that even though my journey, my challenges, they were difficult, I also know that other people have had it harder, and I always remember that too. That's why I'm excited to have my guest with me. Erica Smith is my guest today, because when I first heard her story, I realized that, I think a lot about my childhood, and for me, it was, when you're in that childhood, like, you don't know that it's bad, and for me, it didn't feel bad in that moment. It's only in looking back that I realized that there's some things that happened that really weren't okay. But when I think about what I experienced versus what Erica experienced, I realized that, we all have our challenges to overcome. And in fact, Erica, I think your childhood would have been harder than just about anyone's I've ever heard. And the reason I'm excited to have you here is because I want our audience to know that no matter what you encounter, you can take that experience and you can turn it into a positive, because your journey, I think particularly in those early years, was really difficult. So I look forward to talking about it today, and we're going to go through what it took to get through the resilience, the determination, what it took to get through those setbacks that you had and how you turned it into a beautiful life. So I'm excited to talk about that today.
I'm excited too. Thank you for having me.
I have to tell you, the first time I heard your story, I said to you, we need to share this story because it is so inspiring. I think anyone who's had a difficult childhood will be able to connect with your journey and how you turned it into a positive. So let's go back to the very beginning. I'm excited to tell the happy ending that's going to come, but I want to start at the beginning. Your mom and your dad both were addicted to drugs.
Yes.
And you were in a chaotic, difficult environment that had nonstop moving and changing of schools. Can you share a little bit about those early years and what you experienced?
Yes. So when I was born, my mom had me very, very young, and my mom and my dad were not married. And when my mom was pregnant with me, my biological dad went to jail, and he was in jail until I was 8 years old. So when my mom had me, I had a stepdad, and that's who I was in the home with, and it was very tumultuous. There was drug addiction. I had 2 half brothers, and there was just a lot of turmoil, a lot of moving, a lot of just chaos.
So the 2 half brothers, were they with the stepdad?
Yeah, my mom and my stepdad had 2 boys. Yep, 2 children. Yep, 2 more children. So it was the 3 of us, and it was chaotic. Did
you feel close to the other children when you were growing up?
Yes, I felt very protective and very close to them when we were small, young children. Yes.
I think what's interesting is that even when you're in that environment where you're moving and you don't have enough money for food and they're changing schools. I mean, I changed schools 3 times by 5th grade. Yeah. you don't know that that's not normal.
Right.
Like as a child, that's all you know. So you just assume that that's how everyone lives.
Right.
And I don't even think that you're unhappy in those moments because you don't know anything else.
Absolutely. All I knew was protecting my brothers and making sure that we were okay.
Wow. Are you still in touch with them today?
No, not particularly because they got adopted by someone different than I got adopted from. So we just kind of have had completely different journeys. But yeah.
Got it. Well, we're going to get to that. But I want to talk about a little bit more about those early years. Where were your grandparents? Were they able to spend time with you or be helpful? Because a lot of times they're the fallback.
Yes. So my grandparents were basically my everything, my world. My grandma and grandfather they were the reason why I turned out the way that I turned out, I believe. They took me on weekends. They tried to do as much as they could do. I lived with them a couple times here and there, but I couldn't live with them long term because my grandma had a lot of health struggles and my grandfather was her main caregiver. So I lived with them for short periods of time, but I never could live with them long term.
But they stayed in your life.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's really nice to have that stable.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
I kind of had something like that with my grandmother. She was here till I was 13.
Wow.
And I didn't know either of my grandfathers. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know that I had a second grandmother until I was 10.
Wow.
I went to meet my second grandmother when I was 10 and I was like, you can have two? I didn't even know.
that was a possibility.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Absolutely.
And so we went to meet her when I was 10 and then we ended up moving in with her. And I'm like, we didn't even know her.
Right.
And by the way, she didn't like children. So there were 5 of us and we all had to move in with her when I was 10. But up until then, I had only known my grandmother Neuman, and I have to say she was a safe haven.
Yeah.
Going to her house felt like magic.
Yep.
I thought she lived in this palace in the country, and the truth is it was just this normal split-level house on a road in the county. Absolutely. But for me, it felt like the most special place. Yeah.
Yes. My grandparents' backyard was my paradise. I can remember being a kid and just imagining all these different things in their backyard, and that was my saving grace for my childhood was my grandparents.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that we had this in common. That was true for me too. My grandmother had a beautiful backyard. With a sandbox and grass, and I grew up in the city.
Right, same.
So all I knew was concrete, right? Everything was concrete or brick. There was no garden. There was no yard. The yard was concrete. Yep,
that's exactly right.
Wow, I didn't know we had that in common.
Yeah. And actually, my grandfather, he just passed last year, March of 2024. So
I'm sorry.
That was really hard. He was my best friend up until the very end, and he is the reason why I am where I am today, without a doubt.
I didn't know that, actually. I didn't know that he passed last year. Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really, really, really hard because he was the only person that was still in my life that has known me since I was an infant. He was the last one.
Wow, so he was there for the entire journey.
Yes. Wow. Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you had that time with your grandparents over the years.
Me too.
It's really special.
And I lost my grandma at 14, so we have that. You were 13, I was 14. Yep.
I'm just curious, did they let you go to the funeral?
Yes.
I wasn't allowed to go. So I'm glad that you were able to be there.
Yes, I am too. It was odd because that was kind of the first time I can remember death, and experiencing it. But I am glad that I was able to go.
So I wrote this special note. I wrote this handwritten, we had cursive back then.
Yes.
To your grandmother. I love you, and I wanted to be together forever with her, so I told her that and said, I will love you always. And I dated it, and I folded up this note, and I put 2 little crosses in an envelope with it. So my plan, as a 13-year-old, was to go to the funeral, go up to the casket, sneak it in beside her so that we would be connected for eternity, and that would be our forever connection. That's and really I still have it, actually.
That's really, really sweet.
But I got all dressed up to go, and my parents were like, you're not going. So that wasn't unusual in our household. We never knew what to expect.
Right.
Might be a yes, might be a no, and there was no warning whatsoever. So I get it.
Absolutely.
So those early years really are about what you know.
Absolutely. And you're so right. I didn't really understand how dysfunctional my situation was. I mean, I guess when I would go to my grandparents, it would be very different, but it still was just my reality. So it's not like I knew anything different.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they were there and part of your life.
Yeah, me too.
But then your life got turned upside down again.
Yes.
At 7, they put you into the foster care system.
8. At 8.
Oh, at 8.
Yep.
So what happened when you were 7? What was the transition between 7 and 8?
So, I mean, it just got the drug addiction between my biological mom and my stepdad just spiraled. Like, it got really, really bad. We were missing chunks of time of school. We'd show up to school with no jackets on in the dead of winter. We'd be missing from school for weeks on end. And so eventually the state found out about it, and they came in and they removed me and my brothers from the household. I was 8. My youngest brother was 3, and then my middle brother was 7.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And so they took the 2 boys and kept them together, and then they took me and put me in a foster. Well, at first I went to my grandparents, and I spent one night with them, but they knew they had to turn me over because they could get in trouble if they didn't. And so the next day they turned me over to foster care, and that's when I went at 8 years old. I can still remember driving in the car with this, I don't know, what do they call them? Social workers. Yeah, with the social worker. And I can remember driving in the car and, like, looking and just seeing this house. And, like, it's a stranger. I don't know who it is. I don't know who she is, if she's nice. Is there a husband? Are there children already there?
Wow.
And so I just walked up to the door, and it was just my mom. She was by herself. She was a single lady. And, yeah, she was the first foster home that I went to. And
well, I want to get to her, but I want to ask you first, like, what was the lesson that came out of those early years? I mean, for me, family really resonates. What I'm hearing is the importance of feeling connected.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what that looks like.
Right.
Is it, foster parents, adopted parents, birth parents? I mean, you just want to feel connected.
Absolutely. Definitely. And I think, like, at the time, being a child in that situation, I didn't really understand why I couldn't stay with my grandparents. So I was upset, and I wasn't the nicest to my foster mom when I first went with her. It took me a while to realize, like, she was there to help me, not to hurt me, because I wanted so badly to believe that I was going to go back with my mom. She was going to be okay. Like, she was going to beat her addiction and everything was going to be fine. And
we're so optimistic when we're little.
Absolutely.
We just believe.
We do. 100%.
And we don't want to give up on that.
Every time we would move to it, like we would get evicted and move to a different neighborhood, I would think, oh, this is going to be it. This is going to be the time she's going to stop doing drugs. Like, this is going to be the time. And it would never end like that.
Do you feel angry looking back, or frustrated, or sad? What do you feel when you think back on those years of eternal optimism, like repeated optimism in the face of challenges?
I mean, it definitely is hard not to be angry, but at the same time, as you get older, you understand addiction, and you understand what that is, and you understand that no one in their right mind could ever willingly do that to a child without having an altered state of mind.
I get it. Yeah.
Especially when I became a mom, that really made me understand, like, there's no way she would have done that had she been in her right state of mind.
Right, clearly.
Yep.
Clearly. Well, let's talk about you going into the foster care system, because I have to say, when I think about the journey I've been on in this life in those early years and how hard they were, the truth is, looking back, at the time, I didn't know they were hard.
Right.
It's only in having perspective from living a different life that I understand that now. But I have no doubt that even in the moment, as an 8-year-old, being taken away from your birth mom and placed in foster care must have been incredibly difficult to understand. I mean, trauma isn't even a big enough word. Right. How did you process that?
I mean, I really kind of couldn't. Like, I was just thinking every single day, like, okay, today is the day I'm going to get a call and I'm going to go back to my mom. And that day just never, ever came. And so there was, like, I eventually just had to accept it. Like, I had to just accept the fact that my mom wasn't coming back for me, and this was going to be my new reality, and just move on from there.
The word that I wrote down, because I didn't want to forget, is disappointment. And that made me think about the disappointment you felt with your bio mom.
Yep.
And now you're feeling disappointed every day because she's still not coming to rescue you.
Yep. And then we get to the point of my bio mom, realizing that the best thing in that moment that she could do for me was to let me go and was to let me stay with my foster mom or adoptive mom. She'll later become my adoptive mom.
So your foster mom ended up adopting you, and that's who you call mom today?
Yes.
So you refer to her as mom?
Yes.
Got it.
Yep.
Do you think when you think about your bio mom, do you call her bio mom or by her name?
I usually call her like bio mom just because it can get confusing.
Yeah, I get it. So were you excited to be adopted, or did you still feel a little bit of uncertainty?
So it took 2 years.
And did she ask you? I am kind of curious. Did she
Yes.
ask you if you wanted to be adopted?
Yes, my adopted mom, my mom has always been so good about asking me what I want, asking me how I feel, including my biological family. She always allowed me to have a relationship with my grandparents. She always allowed for me to talk to my bio mom. She always allowed for me to try to communicate with my bio dad.
Wow.
That's one thing about my mom that always impressed my grandparents, especially because my grandmother was very nervous that was going to happen.
Did they have a relationship? So they must have had a relationship.
They did.
Ongoing.
Yeah,
and
they
didn't
came
know
over.
each other beforehand.
No, I can remember finding a letter that my grandma had wrote my mom, like my adopted mom, just thanking her for allowing there to be a relationship, because I always had such a special relationship with my grandparents, and they knew that, and they didn't want to lose that.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really special.
I would say that is the one constant in my life that I'm so grateful for, is that relationship.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it takes a lot for someone who's becoming an adoptive parent to do that.
Absolutely.
So she deserves a lot of credit for that.
Absolutely. And that's why I think that it's really important when kids are in this situation to allow for them to have a little bit of say on whether or not they want to communicate with their biological family, you know.
You were 8. I mean, you're
Right.
still a little kid.
I was a kid, yeah.
That's like 3rd grade.
Right. I'd never felt like a kid, though, ever. I never really had the opportunity to feel like an actual child, because for as long as I can remember, I've always had the mentality of you have to protect your brothers, you have to make sure they're okay. Like, as far back as I can remember, that was my role.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to talk about, this idea of who makes it out and who doesn't. And I think that early responsibility in some ways is a bit of a gift, even though it doesn't feel like it.
Absolutely.
Because you want your children to enjoy childhood.
Yes.
So can you tell me, I know that you love your mom who adopted you, and that she really was very devoted to you, but it was also difficult at times. I mean, she adopted another child.
Yes.
2 years after adopting you.
Yes. She adopted.
So you've got her all to yourself.
Yep.
And you're like,
from
okay.
the time I was 8 till 13. And then at 13, she decided she wanted to adopt another child. And she adopted my sister from Oregon. And that was a bit of a tumultuous time because, like any child that's coming out of the foster care system, you have issues, you have problems, you have things that happen to you that you need to work through. And so that was kind of the time that my mom was more devoted to that, and I was kind of more left on my own.
So she takes you in as a foster child. She adopts you. It's just the two of you for a while, which feels awesome, right?
Yes.
You're getting all this attention after you've been taking care of younger siblings, and by the way, also taking care of your parents.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden another person is introduced.
Yes.
And of course, like anyone in the foster care system, there are going to be challenges.
100%.
It's a difficult adjustment.
100%.
And now there are 3 of you.
Yes.
But I know that it wasn't just the 3 of you. Then she also took in foster kids on the weekends.
Absolutely. And like just different foster kids throughout too, she would take from time to time. So we've had many, many kids come through and live with us and then go on to like move away. And she did respite care on the weekends. So yeah, she was a busy mom.
I am curious, did you have a role or responsibility in that as sort of the oldest child? Were you expected to participate in taking care of these other kids?
Well, by the time my mom started really getting into that, I was getting of the age of like 18. I was like 17, 18. So I was kind of like, I was going to high school. I was working. I was figuring out like my next stage of life.
I understand that.
So I was kind of trying to like, back away from that a little bit. And I moved out a month after I was 18. So I definitely experienced a little bit of the foster kids coming in and out, but not a whole lot of it. My sister experienced more of that than I did.
So I also moved out a month after I turned 18. That's amazing.
Crazy.
I didn't know we had so much in common.
A lot in common.
Wow. Well, when I think about this particular phase of your life, I'm really struck by the disappointment and how you just keep going through that. Mm-hmm. Why do you think some people, I get asked this question all the time, and so I'm always curious. Why do you think some people are able to get through that and think about the next step, which is I'm leaving?
Right.
Like, okay, this is fine.
Right.
You can do your thing here, but I'm going to go live a different life, and
Absolutely.
I'm going to go out and do that because I know I can.
Yep.
Where do you think that comes from?
It's funny. I've thought about this too, because you can have two people and they can have very similar stories, but one can repeat history and repeat the cycle, and then one can completely break and dismantle the cycle.
That happened in my family.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it honestly and truly comes down to the person, who they are inside of them. Like, I really truly believe that. Like, I believe it comes from inside of you. You can't make it. You can't learn it. You can't have it happen. Like, it comes down to who makes up your DNA as a person. That's what I honestly and truly believe.
I actually think it's also that early responsibility. I think that makes a really big difference.
Yeah.
So what we've learned in that phase of your life is that, it is disappointing, but you still want to be connected to family.
100%.
And you're still optimistic. You haven't lost your optimism yet.
Yes.
But then as you're moving into those teen years, it gets a little more complicated because, there are a couple things that you shared with me about that phase from like 13 to 18. Your bio dad contacted you from jail. I was really struck by that.
Yes.
Like how do you, did you know he was going to contact you? Did you know that he was in jail?
No, I did not. I had not spoken to him. I didn't meet him until I was 13. So I'm pretty sure he started writing me from jail when I was maybe 10 or 11. He started, and one day I just got a letter from him. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And your mom gave it to you.
Yes. I'm pretty sure she had spoken with him beforehand.
Wow.
And maybe a social worker had contacted her. And
I would hope so.
Yeah, maybe she asked me and I just don't remember if he could write me. But yeah, one day I just got a letter from him in the mail, and he wrote to me a few times, but it was kind of weird and awkward, and I didn't know him,
So you had never met him because your stepdad raised you.
Yeah.
Until he had his own challenges.
Right.
With drugs, and of course then they went on to have 2 more children.
Yes.
So did you growing up in those early years, did you think your stepdad was your dad, or did you know that he wasn't?
I knew that he wasn't.
You did.
Yeah. And he was not my cup of tea.
I got it.
Not my favorant person, but
I understand that.
Yep. So I didn't really even think of him as a stepdad. I kind of almost thought of myself as parentless in a way, because my parents were so not
parenting. They weren't parenting.
Yeah, I can remember very few actual conversations between me and my bio mom, because she was just so far removed and gone with her addiction. It was really, really bad.
This is you made me think back to, I remember conversations with my mom, and our family was intact.
Yeah.
Even though it was dysfunctional and difficult.
Right.
I don't remember ever having conversations with my mother.
Yeah.
She just wasn't present for that.
Yeah.
Too much going on.
Right.
Too chaotic.
Right. Just because your mom is there physically does not mean that she's really there.
Right.
You know?
And in your case, you actually had to go a step further, which was to take care of everyone. In my case, my oldest brother became that person. He took care of the 4 younger siblings.
Right.
I was the middle child of 5.
Right, absolutely.
As the oldest child, you automatically get that
you,
responsibility.
You do that role, exactly. Whether you want to or not. You have to. No one else is going to,
Did you stay in touch with him?
Who,
your bio dad?
No, we tried getting in contact again around when I was 18 to 20. But He was just on a path in life that I was not interested in being around, and I had worked really hard to get my life on a path that I didn't really want to have that kind of energy in my circle.
Well, I was going to ask you, how did you protect yourself emotionally through all of this? And it sounds like you just basically put up a wall and said, this is what I can and can't do. And
Absolutely.
You guarded your emotions and your mental health.
100%. And that's something I'm also very vocal about, is just because someone is your blood family does not always mean that you need to bend over backwards and put yourself out and, go against who you think you are.
I love that you're saying this. I say this all the time.
Yes. You are able to put up healthy boundaries, and there is nothing wrong with that.
So you're not one of those people who signs up for this idea that, it's your mom, so you just have to get along with her.
Absolutely not.
Honestly, if I had $1 for every time someone said to me, she's your mom, you're going to regret that you don't have this relationship.
Worst thing
I'd be on a
say.
beach in Aruba.
Absolutely.
I mean, and I totally disagree with that advice.
Me too.
Now, I do believe in trying.
Absolutely.
Now, if there's a loving relationship,
100%,
and you're both
working
there
towards
for that, then that's
healing,
great.
And you're working towards this goal of mending a relationship, and you're both on board, 100%. I am all for that.
Yeah.
But if it's like they're still on their journey and they're not trying to improve or help themselves, and all they're doing is bringing drama and negativity into your world, the idea of having to tolerate that just because they're your blood relative, absolutely not. I don't subscribe to that at all.
Yeah, I do think you try, but if you try and it doesn't work, I used to go back over and over again and knock on that door. There's a big sign that says, do not disturb, keep out, private, keep out, like so unfriendly.
Yes.
But I would still knock on that door and I would try over and over again.
Absolutely.
So this particular phase of your life, what do you think was really the lesson? I think it's protecting yourself and your mental
100%.
health.
I could not agree with you more. I think that protecting myself has always been something that I've been able to be good at. It can often come off as being cold sometimes to people.
I don't think I would ever get that impression from you.
Yeah, I just don't tolerate, like, if you aren't bringing positive, like, I'm not saying that there's never trials and tribulations and life doesn't get tough. I'm not saying I walk away when life gets tough, but if you are someone from my past and I've tried over and over and over to have a positive, healthy relationship with you, and you've proved time and time again that that's not a possibility, then I'm closing that door. I'm not going to allow myself to keep wanting it to be something that it's not going to be. And that's kind of how I feel like things are with my bio dad.
Mm-hmm. Is he still here?
Mm-hmm. He's still alive. Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
And he's out of jail.
Yeah.
So, but you don't see him.
No.
Interesting.
He tried to, we tried to talk here and there, and he's just on a journey that I'm not. He's still drinking and doing things that I'm just not here for.
You can't do anything. You're not here for that.
Yeah, I'm not here for that kind of behavior, especially around my daughter. I don't, that's her, in theory, that's her grandfather, right?
Right.
I don't want her thinking.
Does she ever ask about him?
No, never.
We're going to get to how awesome a mom you are, and
thank you.
how you really changed generational trauma and turned it into a positive.
Thank you.
But I before we get there, I really want to talk about you going back and seeing your bio mom.
Yeah.
So you moved out when you were 18.
Yeah.
A couple years later, and I don't even know how you survived. I mean, do you remember, how did you get by in those years? I mean, I was living out of my car.
Yeah.
I moved out of my parents, which was really my grandparents' house, put everything in a plastic trash bag, and I lived out of my car for 6 months. And I slept on floors and sofas and anywhere I could get a place to sleep.
Absolutely.
With friends.
Yeah.
And I did that for a couple years.
Right. I know. I lived in apartments with many roommates, just trying to build myself up. I went to hair school. I put myself through hair school.
How old were you when you did that?
I was 18, turning 19.
So did you graduate from high school?
Yep, graduated from high school. And then I immediately went into hair school. And then I realized oh, wait, I need to actually work full time to be able to afford to live on my own.
Did you rent a room in someone else's house, or did you get an apartment?
I got an apartment.
How did you afford that?
So me and one of my girlfriends, we got an apartment together.
Oh, that's smart.
Yep. So, and we both like went in half and half on it. I don't know why or how they approved us, but they did. I was like, thank you to the one people.
You can't have bad credit if you haven't had any credit.
If you have no credit, exactly.
They were a little more open-minded back then too.
Exactly. They were a little more lenient.
It wasn't all on the internet.
Exactly. Yeah. Not just yet. So I got an apartment and I went to hair school, ended up not finishing hair school because I found out I had to work full time. I couldn't afford to live on my own working at night. So I stopped going to hair school. I quit hair school, started working at a salon full time as a receptionist, told the owner in my interview that I had gone to hair school. And I would be in the back, like, while they're doing color and highlights.
I mean, it wasn't a lie. Like,
right.
You had
yeah,
gone.
I had gone for 6 months. I had gone to hair school. And I would always go in the back and look at what they were doing. And she came up to me and she was like, you either have it or you don't. You have it. I'm not going to allow you to just be my receptionist.
What?
Yeah, I'm going to apprentice you and you're going to do hair.
We all have people on our journey who inspire us. And
she definitely is one.
She's like the fairy godmother.
Yep. Because I wouldn't
I love it.
be a hairstylist without her.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I find this so interesting. Look, for me in those years of 18 to my early 20s, like I just wanted to go to college or get a job that wasn't as a waitress or a bartender or in retail. Like I wanted a job that was going to turn into a career. And I lied too. I went for an interview as a customer service call rep for this business called T. Rowe Price. And they're like, do you have a college degree? And I'm like, I didn't tell them I had one, but I said, I'm on track to get one.
Good answer.
Which is the same thing.
Yep, good answer.
Okay, well, is that good enough to get me the job?
Right. So I swear I'll work hard.
All right, I'll be the hardest worker you've ever seen.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
I think they can see that.
Right. They can sense it. And because of our past, we are
hard workers.
We
get things done.
Absolutely.
So the most striking part of your story for me, honestly, without a doubt, there's so much about it that really feels very personal, and I think so many of our listeners will be able to relate to, is you end up pregnant in your early 20s, and you go back to see your bio mom.
Yep.
I did the same thing at 39.
Yeah.
Maybe I was 40 by then, because I had children much later.
Yeah.
I remember going back with my child. In your case, you were still pregnant, but I just remember being so scared to knock on that door. Mm-hmm. What was that like for you?
I'm going to say it was probably since I was like 16, maybe 17, since I had seen her. So it had been years, yes. And I learned that she was not doing well health-wise. She had reached out to my grandfather to kind of apologize, make amends for all the years of, drug use and trauma and everything she put him through. And so he showed me the letter, and I, of course, saw the address on it, and I went and showed up at her house, and we had a little reconciling, and that was honestly the most coherent and longest conversation that we had ever had, and she just apologized for everything and said that no matter how, much drugs she did and how horrible of a time we had, she really thought that giving me and my brothers away was the best thing that she could possibly do for us. And me being pregnant at the time and knowing what was ahead, I couldn't really understand it yet, but I would go to understand it after I had my daughter. But it was really nice to be able to see her. And at that time she was clean. She had gotten off of drugs. She was doing the program, the methadone program.
Wow.
Yep. But
did you tell your grandparents you were going to go see her?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah, so my grandma was already passed at the time, but I did tell my grandfather that I was going to see her. He's very stoic, very old school.
Do you think he approved or didn't approve?
I think he approved. I do, because I think he knew that I had a lot of things that I wanted to get out on the table and say to her and make amends for and with. So I think
she'd already apologized to her parents, so that means that she was in a place to
exactly
receive that.
Exactly.
But you showed up not just with yourself, but with a surprise.
Right. Right. And she
pregnant.
really, she wanted to meet my daughter. And I was kind of on the fence about it. And I went back and forth and back and forth. And I had decided I was going to let her meet her. But then she ended up passing away. And I did take my daughter to the funeral, with me. And that was, that felt like it was good to, like, have that moment. And
that's a moment.
Yeah.
Like, that's a real moment.
Yeah.
It's your mom.
Right.
You're also a woman, and now you have your daughter.
Right.
3 generations of women in your family at the funeral.
Right.
Like, I know it was a funeral for your mom, but the idea that this trauma has been passed, and you have a choice at this point.
Yep.
Do I continue this?
Absolutely.
Or do I change it?
Absolutely.
And as an early 20-something, I mean, it's really hard to make a different choice.
Yes, absolutely. It was really, really, really challenging. Especially, like, me and my daughter's father, we had our own struggles and things were up and down with him. And so it was definitely a very hard struggle being in my early 20s, trying to figure it all of it out.
And then your daughter's bio dad passed.
Yep, he passes away.
And now you're alone and you have to figure this out on your own.
Absolutely. And that was really hard. I was a single mom. I had taken the first year of my daughter's life off to stay at home with her. So, I was doing some clients at home, making extra money, but I really wasn't making a ton of money at that point.
Oh, you're scraping by at that point.
Exactly. I'm just trying to, like, survive. And then, he passes away and I become a single mom at the drop of a hat. We weren't together at the time that he passed away. We had already
separated.
Yeah, we had already separated and gone our separate ways. But it was really, really hard.
But it's just a reminder once again.
Yes.
You're reminded again that you're on your own.
Absolutely.
In this world, and you've got to figure it out.
Yes. Just always just pull yourself up and figure it out,
I've felt that way many times. I know what that is.
Yes.
I can't imagine, though, doing that with a child.
With a child, yeah.
No.
And I will say, thank goodness I had good friends around me, really good friends and good people, because I would not have been able to do it without them. But also I think it goes back to just having that willpower and that resilience to always want to keep going and just keep going and keep going. But I have to tell you, there were times where I was like, no wonder so many women stay in situations they shouldn't.
Hey, I get that.
Because it was really, really hard.
Yeah.
Really extremely hard.
And it's not even just financial.
Exactly.
It's like this
everything.
idea of being alone and
Yes.
having to do it on your own as a single parent.
Yes. And my mom didn't live here. She lived in Missouri. So it was like I didn't have a network of family around me that I could say.
So she had left and moved to Missouri, which makes you even more alone. So you have your what I call like your chosen family of your friends.
Absolutely. And they just made my world so much easier and helped me out in every way. And I'm so grateful that I had good people around me.
Yeah, I think what at first I was going to say, okay, this phase of your life just makes me think about forgiveness, like in the importance of forgiveness. But it's not just that; it's the chosen family. It's choosing to surround ourselves with people who care about us and have our best interest.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, and learning to not tolerate things because you feel like you just have to. Like you can always, always, always change how your life is going. Yeah. If you really want to do it, you can.
Want to. I have this saying, you can either curl up in a ball or you can go forward.
Yep.
But there is a happy ending here, which I really am excited to share with everyone in our audience because, I do think that there's a lot to be learned from these struggles. Yes. And I don't think they happen for a reason, but they do happen.
Yes.
And we can choose how we respond to them. We can learn from them and we can turn them into strengths. But yours is actually much bigger than that. You ended up having the happy ending and meeting Tim.
Yes.
Your husband.
Yes.
What's he like?
He's the most amazing person ever. And I'm so thankful every single day that I have met him and that I've also allowed myself to be with somebody who is so caring and so giving and so wonderful. Because I feel like a lot of the times, especially women, when they grow up without fathers and without father figures, we're always looking for the man that like we can change and we can fix and all of that. And I'm just so happy that I was able, and I think because I had my grandfather and he showed me what that was like.
Love that.
That I was able to find someone like Tim reminds me so much of my grandfather. Stability, kindness, always thinking about me and Olive before himself.
So Tim became a stepdad to your daughter, and he's raised her with you.
Yes, since she was 3 years old. Yes, yes.
I have to say this. I think the most extraordinary part of your story is that you let yourself be happy.
Yes.
And for those amongst us who have grown up in challenging circumstances, and yours by all accounts was harder than most, it's hard to get to that point where we will let ourselves be happy and know that we deserve that, because we're so busy blaming ourselves for what we've been through, because, it's been years of trying to figure this out. And you understood the importance of letting go of the past. You couldn't control the past, and letting yourself be happy.
Absolutely.
And creating the family that you wanted.
Absolutely.
I love that.
I definitely have created the family that I've wanted. I've worked really, really hard for it, and I'm really proud of what I've been able to accomplish and to build out of all of this. And I honestly wouldn't change what happened to me or how it happened in any way, because it's made me who I am. And it's made me the mom that I am. And it was really sweet because my daughter recently, she's been in her high school journey, and
she's fun. Love those teen
it's amazing.
Years.
And she's had to write, some essays about what makes her special. And she talked about my journey and my childhood and my struggles. And it really made me think wow, my daughter is of the age where she's understanding what I went through. And I'm glad that I was able to share that with her, because she can understand what I've done and how hard I've worked to get to where I am.
What was it like when your daughter was the age that you were when you entered the foster care system?
Oh, that was probably one of the hardest things for me, was when my daughter became 8 years old, and I just looked at her and I just thought to myself, wow, that is how old I was when I was in a car driving to a stranger's house that I was going to be living with. And I just thought to myself, how could any parent have that happen and just have it be okay? And that's when it clicked to me, that's how bad drug addiction is, and that's how much of the drugs just mess with your mind. It is like a cancer. It's it just takes over everything. And it gave me a lot of clarity. It also gave me a lot of sadness. But more than anything, it helped me respect my mom a lot more, my bio mom, because of how, I just sat there and looked at Olive and I was I could never imagine giving you away to someone else.
Right, exactly. And actually, it was, not only is it that, it's that which is extraordinary.
Yes.
Extraordinary to go through that at the same, that journey with those age milestones.
Absolutely.
But then on top of that, to build this beautiful family and marry into a great family.
Yes.
I mean, not only did you marry a great guy, but you married into a wonderful, welcoming, loving family.
Yes. Amazing.
How did you know how to do that?
I still don't know.
Okay, so
something in the universe was looking out for me and was this girl deserves a break.
No, I think it's you too. You took the time to understand it, because not everyone does. Some of us, not everyone gets out.
Right.
Why do some people get out and some don't? I really think I have come to believe, and I'm not sure. I'm sure a lot of things go into it, but part of it is, I think, that early responsibility. You wanted to do a better job.
Yep. Absolutely. And I've just always had this thing inside of me where I've just always been able to look at things in a positive way. And I know not a lot of people can't do that, and I know that that's a privilege to be able to do that. Yes.
Yeah. So you're saying you have to find that internal optimism, that belief that things are going to be okay.
Yes. And I know it's for some people that is not a possibility, but for me it's always been, I have been able to do that.
So one more final question. How do you explain this to your daughter, or have you? I mean, does she know your journey? Does she know the story of what you've been through? And how do you help her connect with that? Because she's living a pretty awesome life.
Yeah. So
in a very happy family.
Absolutely. I have shared that with her, because I think it's really important for especially our kids, to see us have emotion and to know our stories and know our struggles and know that life isn't going to be this like linear, just straight path. Like there's going to be peaks, there's going to be pits, there's going to be good, there's going to be bad. And I feel like it's really important for our kids to see our story and to see our struggle and to know what we've been through to get to where we are and to make us who we are.
Do you think that understanding early on, like the career path that you wanted to follow, was helpful? I mean, I've always believed it gives you purpose.
Yes.
And you're very good at what you do. You're a stylist, and you figured that out fairly early in your journey. Do you think it's been helpful to have that kind of stability and something to get you out of bed every day other than caring for family?
Absolutely. I think it's definitely good to find your passion, find what you're good at, and do it. And I mean, even if it's finding a hobby that you're into that makes you happy and brings you joy, like you have to have something like that. And I'm a firm believer in that as well.
Yeah, my lesson from this part of your journey is let yourself be happy.
Yes.
You deserve to be happy. Let 100%. Yourself be happy.
Yes. And everybody deserves that.
Yes, everyone deserves it, but sometimes it feels hard.
Yeah, it's hard to feel like you deserve good when you've had so much bad happen to you. But I always tell my daughter, I say, if you're going through life and nothing bad happens, like no magic can happen, because like when the bad stuff happens, that's when the magic happens, because it's what you do with the bad stuff that really defines who you are and makes you be a better person.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you. It's been great.
It's been a joy to have you with us. I mean, it's an extraordinary story of resilience and determination, making the family life that you want for yourself, creating the world that's going to bring you joy. And
Absolutely.
So it's incredibly inspiring, and I am just honored that you shared it with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me and for allowing me to share my story.
Thanks for tuning in for this episode. It was incredibly inspiring to hear from Erica Smith. Her story is one of resilience and determination and choosing happiness. We'll see you next time.
Cut!